And now, your feature presentation.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to our first Untitled TIFF review of 2021. I am one of your hosts, Matt Rorabeck, alongside, he's allergic to tomatoes, but he is tomato meter approved, Eric Marchen.
Matt, it's time to rev those engines. It's TIFF season.
Yeah, baby. Yes. Today we are reviewing Julia Ducournau's Titane, starring Agathe Roussella, Vincent Linden, and more. It is the opening night film of Midnight Madness. It is the Palme d'Or winner of this year. It was on our list of most anticipated films for 2020 and 2021. A movie we were very excited to see. I'm so excited to kick off the festival with this one. It was legitimately the first movie we screened for the festival this year, which I feel like, Eric, every year I think I either start with the Palme d'Or winner or one of the biggest Cannes films. And I don't know if you feel the same way when it comes to TIFF. And I'm just so pumped that it's TIFF season and we're doing this on video for the first time. But TIFF is my favorite time of the year. It's my favorite time of doing this show with you and this podcast. I feel like we've absolutely crushed it the last couple years, and the additional thing we're doing this year. Last year we added the individual reviews instead of doing the daily roundup, and then this year we're doing video, which adds a lot of work on our end, but it's a blast. So I'm so excited to talk about this. How you feeling?
I'm good. I'm excited, especially because we're kicking it off with a genre film and one that I really have no idea how to talk about, because I think the best way to go into a movie like this is to know nothing at all. And some people will be ultimately turned off by the film, and especially if they're looking at it from the point of view of, this being a Palme d'Or winner and the prestigious element that coincides with being a
Yeah.
Palme d'Or winner. This isn't like I, Daniel Blake, or an Apichatpong movie, but we'll be talking about him as well.
Yeah.
In one of our reviews.
Not
With
even like
Memoria.
Parasite, which kind of straddles that line a little
Parasite's
bit.
one of those movies that kind of is a film that meets in the middle, and it's very rare to get one of those films where it balances both genre and sort of,
Prestige.
accessibility in that perfect sort of milieu, where T10 is a genre movie that wears its beating bloody heart on its sleeve. And the influences that this film is showcasing is everything from, body horror elements that, David Cronenberg has kind of brought to the forefront, to the works of Nicholas Winding Refn, and even a little bit of 1981's Possession. And then on top of that, if this movie was released, say, between 2000 and 2005, it would fit beautifully within the French extremities, that is, movies like High Tension, directed by Alexander Aja, or Martyrs, or Inside, movies that are very infamous in terms of the visuals that they provoke an audience to watch and sort of have to dissect and what it means in terms of metaphor, but also just how grisly or extreme, again, the extremities can be within, the genre that the filmmaker is playing with. And Julia Ducournau also being somewhat infamous for her last film, which played at TIFF, Raw,
Midnight Madness.
Midnight Madness movie, a film that, is a cannibalistic coming of age drama, with one of the leads in that movie also being in this, playing a character that's also named Justine in both Raw and in T10. Whether or not they're the same character, I don't think they are. It's just kind of a fun little nod to her last movie.
Yeah.
But in terms of getting into the plot, I don't want to say too much, but I will say that it involves sex, cars, mayhem, and murder. And that is probably the best way to sum it up. I've already mentioned
Fire.
body horror. Yes, tons of fire, a lot of fluid, specifically both gender fluid and also literal fluid throughout. And it's a film about rebirth and death in many ways. And visually speaking, again, that's the reason why you come to see a movie like Titane, which is very much provocative in terms of, human decay and rebirth of a being. And there's some very outlandish moments throughout this movie, but if you give it a shot, you might be pleasantly surprised.
Oh yeah, it'll be unlike any other movie you watch this year. I will guarantee that. And a little context for our TIFF stuff this year. We're considering these capsule reviews, so we're not going to go as long as maybe our normal reviews, which sometimes go upwards of 20, 30, 40 minutes, depending on the film. We're going to try to keep these condensed 10, 15 minutes tops this year for every review. If we go a little bit longer, that's fine, but we're going to keep this short. And as Eric mentioned, we don't want to give anything away in this movie, so we'll probably be pretty vague with our thoughts. Yeah, I think I really, really liked it. I do have maybe some issues in the latter half of the movie of it coming to a crashing halt a little bit, and the pacing kind of slows down and it becomes more of this story between
Now, was
you
crashing
know
intentional because
yes,
of
it
David
was. Yeah.
Cronenberg's Crash?
Yeah, and kind of the subject matter of the movie. Yeah,
Right.
it definitely was intentional, Eric. Where I think the movie does slow down quite a bit in that second half and kind of loses me a little bit. And I wasn't maybe as invested as it's not as stylish and intense maybe in that second half. There are moments of that, but it does kind of become this kind of almost weirdly, I'm going to say this, but like a relationship kind of drama between, a father who lost his son previously and the
Who
lead
went missing almost a decade
yeah
prior. Yeah.
and then of Alexia, who is on the run after some events in the first half of the movie and previously in her life. But yeah, it's a movie that I don't really want to say much about, and you've probably read about it, basically being this wild ride that won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. And I think that's all you really need to know. Like as much as I had a few issues in that second half of as the movie kind of slows down a bit and maybe wasn't as interesting to me with this relationship, I think it still ultimately works. But there's some wild, absolutely wild stuff in this movie that I feel like you haven't seen before, and I feel like it's definitely worth it. And even talking about what it's about, and you might already kind of know what it's about if you did a little bit of
And
research,
don't go
but
onto Wikipedia because it
because it
gives the
has the
whole
whole
plot
plot, yeah.
synopsis. Yeah.
And I just think like it's stylish. The music is great. The cinematography is awesome. The lead performance is incredible, and I think both. Oh God, I already forgot the pronunciation, but Agat Rusella
Russella. Yeah.
and Vincent Linden, both of them are just giving it their complete all. They're laying it all on the line. They're going for it in this movie, and I think both performances are absolutely spectacular. I think,
Completely committed. You
yeah,
mentioned that after we watched the film and we were talking about it. Going back to the Go Train, these two performances are completely invested in the material and believe in what they're doing. And to watch the film, you could say, oh well, this is a little quote unquote silly or genre, so you don't have to take it seriously. They do. The way that
hmm
Vincent Linden's character, having mourning the loss of his son without any closure for those years since then, playing a fire captain and also injecting steroids into his buttocks,
hmm
is somebody that not you're not necessarily supposed to be maybe on his side, but at the same time you're able to sympathize with what he's been going through.
I think
And
sympathize is the thing throughout the movie, even with a character that might if you just say what the movie is about, isn't supposed to be very sympathetic. But like I think the movie touches on some interesting things with toxic masculinity, and you mentioned gender and stuff like that, and pregnancy is a big thing in this movie too, and without giving it away. And I think it does a really interesting job using genre. And you said like the best genre movies kind of are things that can be sort of social commentary on different things. And you've said that over and over again, Eric, and it's one reason why you, I think, really like horror movies and genre movies. And I think this movie does a good job. Again, we're dancing around what it's about, but just trust us in that it does touch on all these subjects, I think, in a very visceral, intense, wild way that is actually kind of trying to say something too. And I think that's ultimately why I think it, won the Palme d'Or in Cannes,
which
and
is still wild to
yeah.
me that
Oh, it
that
is. It's
movie
got to
won
be
the
the
Palme
wildest Palme
d'Or.
d'Or, yeah, winner.
And thinking about like moments of being visceral, there are scenes in which you will literally curl your toes
Yeah.
and cringe at because they are so intense and so disturbing at times. And you know, I like to think that I've seen it all, but when you get a movie like this and it reminds you that you're still human while watching it, I think that that's also a big win. I think where maybe it loses me a little bit, you mentioned the second act being more sort of grounded in some dramatic elements, or at least examining sort of, again, toxic masculinity through this firefighter house and what have you. But I think where the film ultimately ends up, I think the visual aspect of it is very powerful, but I don't know if I was emotionally
Yeah.
invested in it, if it makes sense. Because you look at something like David Cronenberg's The Fly and how the last act of that movie hits you on an emotional level because you care about the characters, where I feel like this is very much a genre exercise at times, and also the narrative is very elliptical in that it's not necessarily going from A to B. It almost feels like the passage of time is non-linear, and that you're not necessarily, you know, it's more almost like scenes or moments with these characters, instead of just like, okay, well, this is leading to this and this is going to get you to there. There are certain
Mhm.
moments that they're building up to, but it's not necessarily going to, you know, spoon feed you where you're ultimately going to go. And you can never predict where this movie
No.
is going to go, and it is strange and weird and out there. But again, if
It
you're a
won't be
genre,
for everyone. That's for
no, no, no.
sure.
But if you're a genre fan, you'll ultimately understand the language that is being sort of conveyed, and the visual sort of tapestry that's being sort of conveyed on the screen, because you can tell that Julia Ducournau is a huge fan of horror movies and of genre films. And again, like I mentioned, the film that it reminded me the most of is 1981's Possession with Isabella Adjani and Sam Neill, where that movie is icky and weird and also very powerful in, you know, it's melodrama, where I think this movie, the melodrama doesn't work as well, but everything else kind of feels like it's
Yes,
almost
I totally
akin
agree.
to that 81 movie. And again, if you've never seen that film, I highly recommend
I haven't. You
checking
told me a
that
little
movie
bit
out.
about it. Yeah, yeah.
It's out there. But yeah, I really really like this movie, and the more I've sat on it, the more I've thought about it. I love it. And yes, we know Vincent Linden looks like Christopher Maloney. We get it. But again, I really love an actor like him who, you know, he's worked with Claire Denis and done a lot of these social dramas like The Measure of a Man, which he won the best actor prize at Cannes 5-6 years ago now. Um, so when he does something like this, the genre, it's kind of fun to see, like, you know, respected world actors play within this kind of sandbox, the same way even like Tony Leung is in a Marvel movie. It's just
Yeah,
fun to see these guys who are so well respected and like
as
classic
dramatic actors doing
world
like, yeah,
celebrated actors doing
like
kind
a
of
fucked up
fun
weird genre
movie.
movie. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it was thoroughly enjoyable. I think there was something missing that made me absolutely love it. But I think it's a hell of a way to kick off Midnight Madness. I think that crowd will have an absolute riot with it at the Princess of Wales, which is an interesting venue from moving from the Ryerson. Like, I know it's still a very different year where people will be socially distanced and maybe there won't be beach balls bouncing around before the movie starts and things like that. But I absolutely think it is a fantastic start to the festival and a fantastic start to Midnight Madness. I think it's thoroughly enjoyable with some great performances, some interesting, social commentary, and it is wholly unlike anything you will see this year, let alone in the last probably ever in a movie. Like, there are some things that happen in this movie that have never probably happened in a movie before, or something you've never really even seen before.
Well,
So
I disagree with that just a little bit, just because of the
really,
references I've made to
sure.
Cronenberg and
I mean,
Possession and things
I'm
like that.
talking specifically about certain things I don't think have been in another movie before.
Right, right. Well,
Maybe
it's
certain playing in this certain space, sure,
it's like Tarantino, right? Where Tarantino takes those sort
and
of.
twists it, makes his own thing out of it. Yeah,
Exactly,
so
and
I
that's
get
what
what you're
Julia
saying.
Ducournau is doing with this, where, like, if you've seen a Cronenberg movie, if you've seen a Nicholas Winding Refn film, if you've
Yes,
seen
I get
Possession,
that. Yeah,
you'll get those genre mashups that you'll
I'm talking more.
extract.
It's hard to say what I'm talking about, but I don't think this exact thing has happened in a movie before.
Right.
Maybe.
But it's also very brutal at times as well. So if you do have a weak stomach, I don't know if I would recommend it because,
I think
again,
everyone going in knowing it's a opening night of a Midnight Madness, although that's happened where
yeah.
people have fainted and different things like that. I mean, that
With
gets
Raw,
blown.
I mean, look at
Yeah.
Raw, right? But again, like you're going into this movie thinking, okay, this is the Palme d'Or winner, so I've got to see this movie because it's a, you know, a prestigious, acclaimed film, and you think you're going to get like some sort of like social drama or something like that.
Right.
That is not this movie.
No, no, no.
This is the most hardcore Palme d'Or winner ever, and for that alone it's worth celebrating. But on top of that, it's so beautifully directed.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, but it still is also just a great representation of what a filmmaker is able to do, and again, from a female perspective,
Yes.
where, you know, a lot of
I
these
think that's a huge
movies,
part of it.
you know, like a lot of these sort of French new wave extremity horror films, they offer a lot of stuff in terms of bodily horror and sort of like the idea of what, you know, a character is going through, but to internalize it from the point of view of a female lead who's also, again, playing with gender identity. I think all that is really, really fascinating stuff.
I
And
agree.
to go just quickly with Rosella, this is her first film.
That's wild. Yeah, yeah.
She's acting alongside a, you know, a veteran, a legend of French cinema. And the reason why Julia Ducournau picked her, or how she found her, was on Instagram, and she liked her androgynous look.
That's
That was the
awesome.
reason why she was
And
cast.
it works completely. She kills it in this, literally. It's great. It's a wonderful start to the festival. I do, again, it's hard to talk about without spoiling a lot of it, but I think you should check it out. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I'm gonna give it a 3.5 out of 5. I really liked it, but there was something missing in that second half that didn't completely grab me as much as that first half of the movie. So I'm gonna give it a 3.5 out of 5, but still a great start to Midnight Madness and a great start to the festival.
I'm going to give it a 4.5. It's also one of my
Wow,
favorite
okay.
films of the year.
Okay, awesome. Thank you all for listening. This kicks off our TIFF coverage. We'll have new reviews, multiple reviews, every single day, starting with this one, probably 2 to 3 movies a day, maybe even more. So you can check all those out on the Untitled Movie Reviews podcast channel, or right here on YouTube, which is Untitled Movie Reviews and Podcast Conversations. You can find it on YouTube. There, we'll link it in our Letterboxd HQ, which is Untitled_movies. We'll be posting all over social media, which is Untitled_movies on most places like Twitter. But yeah, we're just excited and pumped. This was a great start to the festival. I'm just pumped to talk about movies for the next couple weeks with Eric, and it's my favorite time of the year. So thank you. As always, my name is Matt Rorabeck. You can find more of my work around the internet, but mostly at UntitledMoviePodcast.com, and you can follow me on all those social medias at Matt Rorabeck.
And I'm Eric Marchen. You can find more of my video reviews at rogerstv.com/cinemascene and on the social medias at EM6211.
Until next time.
You'll never look at knitting needles the same way again.